Today on the Huddle Up Draft podcast, Carl and Nick discuss the latest signings by the Denver Broncos and how it will affect John Elway as he builds the Broncos back up and how he attacks the upcoming NFL draft. This is the Huddle Up Draft podcast.
Welcome to the Huddle Up podcast, your go-to show for all things Broncos.
Once again, Broncos country, it is time to huddle up draft style. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and with me, as always, I have my co-host and good friend, Nick Kendell. Nick, how are you doing, man? I know you just got back from vacation in sunny Florida.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I got back pretty late last night, so work was a little bit rough today. Was not as productive as I probably should have been, but that's okay. You know, just getting back into the swing of things, and Florida was good. It's the Emerald Coast. We were on Okaloosa Island right off Fort Walton and Destin, and beautiful, beautiful area, like white sand, and they call it the Emerald Coast for a reason. The water is beautiful, but unfortunately it was a little chilly. I'm not going to complain too much because, I was in Florida and it was 55 to 65 degrees and it was about 30 degrees back home. But I wish I could have had a little bit better weather. But what can you do? It's from covering the combine to getting to go to Florida. I guess I'm going to have to put a little bit of work in, both at the hospital and with the draft coming up now, and get back in the swing of things.
That's right. We're a month and a half away from the draft. How crazy is that?
I wish it was
very
tomorrow.
Excited. Yeah, it'd be nice to have some questions answered. But we're going to talk about some of those questions today on the Huddle Up 2018 Draft Show. As all of you know, this show focuses on all things pertain to your Denver Broncos as it relates to the upcoming NFL Draft. With Nick and myself being draftaholics, we'll be bringing you fresh insight and analysis each and every week in every single episode, from scouting reports, player value, scheme, and personnel fits, and general draft-related banter. You can follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler, MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell, MHH. And you can be sure to tweet us any questions or opinions you have because we live for talking Bronco and draft football. You can also follow the podcast Twitter account at HuddleUpPod. And make sure you check out ours and our co-writers' written content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of scout.com, an affiliate of the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football, draft, and Bronco crazy as we are. So please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes as well as Stitcher. And don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners. So as a call to action, please go take the time to go to iTunes or Spreaker and rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Well, Nick, I don't think we could have a draft or Bronco-related podcast without talking about the quarterback. And the Broncos went out and Mile High Huddle, we've been saying this for a very long time, or at least especially the last couple of weeks, that the quarterback for the Broncos was going to be Case Keenum. So now that it's actually official, that it's actually happened, how do you feel about Case Keenum being the Broncos quarterback, possibly the starter this upcoming year?
When the Broncos first signed him, I was definitely disappointed. I felt like at the time, Case Keenum, for what I thought he was going to get, this is his big chance to make as much money as he can. And I wouldn't have faulted him for getting as much long-term guaranteed money as possible. And when I first saw he was announced as a signing, I thought, oh man, Broncos just paid $18 to $20 million a year for 4+ seasons of Case Keenum. La-di-da, here we go. Fortunately, it looks like this deal is much more of a Mike Glennon type of deal. Not sure the exact guaranteed amount yet or how that cap hit's going to be the first year. I've heard 13 to 14 million, but it does not look too bad. And all in all, he's said and done all the right things. And with Kirk Cousins getting that huge deal, and then honestly, the nail in the coffin, seeing what Sam Bradford got from the.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, just $20 million with a $20 million option next year and $15 million guaranteed. Holy moly, that is absolutely disgusting. So I don't hate it. I think that for me though, the grade is going to be dependent on what the Broncos do in the draft. Because for me, I know I was listening to the podcast that Chad put up yesterday about free agency. He says that the Broncos, he thinks that they're not going to take a quarterback at 5. And I think Keenum is the ultimate bridge guy. He's definitely knows what it means to be a backup. He's a smart guy. He seems like a charismatic guy. He knows the league. He's been around a few different teams, and the deal just screams to me perfect bridge quarterback where, worst case scenario for him, I guess, is that a rookie comes in and beats him and he's the backup guy. And the Broncos aren't on, potentially $7 million guaranteed next year, something like that. So he seems like the perfect bridge quarterback and is definitely an antithesis of Paxton Lynch as well. He's not the super toolsy guy, but does a good job making the reads before the snap, getting rid of the ball. The Minnesota offensive line was not great last year. They were improved. They were a little bit better than the Broncos. I think they were one spot ahead of them, according to Pro Football Focus. The Vikings were ranked 22 to the Broncos 23 as far as offensive lines. But Keenum was one of the better quarterbacks last year under pressure. Now, that partially is because he had some damn good weapons, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, and let's not forget Kyle Rudolph, who's a really good, underappreciated tight end. But I think it's a good get. And the devil's in the details. We'll see what the contract is specifically, but once the deal is announced, it's a 2-year deal, not super expensive, and seems like that's something the Broncos could potentially get out of or potentially even trade in the offseason if something happens that way, because somebody's going to have some demand for a quarterback like that, especially the Broncos have some roster bonuses, so his contract's going to be a little bit lower. So overall, I'd give it a B, but the grade is not complete yet. It definitely depends on what the Broncos do in the draft if they can complement Keenum with a young franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. I'm maybe a little bit higher on Keenum as a player than you are. I think he can be a very quality starter for the Broncos. And I went back and watched a lot of his games because I had this preconceived idea in my head that a lot of his success was more about the people around him than it was about him. And the more I watched, the more I'm just going, man, this guy, he was part of the reason that offense was successful. Like you said, that offensive line was not great. I've heard some people say, oh, man, now that he's gotten away from Minnesota, he'll go back to the old Keenum. Well, again, it wasn't like he was surrounded by – I mean, he had talent, like you said, at the weapons positions. He had wide receivers. He had a tight end. Running backs wise, he had some decent talent there as well. But it's not like he's coming to Denver without some talent where you have DT, you have Sanders. We're hoping that Butt can be something. I mean, we haven't seen it yet. We still have the 1,000-yard rusher on the team and C.J. Anderson. And I think with Keenum's deal, there is a possibility that C.J. Anderson is still on this team come September. Just kind of seems that way. I keep thinking of, with Anderson, back to when we missed out on Brock Osweiler. I say missed out, but it wasn't really that big of a miss out. But anyway, because we didn't put all that money towards Brock Osweiler, that meant we could keep other players. Well, because we didn't put money towards Kirk Cousins, maybe there's some guys that might stay that otherwise would have gone. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But I don't think this situation coming to Denver from Minnesota is going to be such a drastic change, at least in the talent pool that he's going to be surrounded by. And so I think he can come here. He can have success. I think there's things about his game that translate so much better. He's not Trevor Simeon. He's not going to curl up in the fetal position when somebody's in his face. In fact, that's kind of what he almost prefers, it seems like. There's almost times where he holds on to the ball as long as he possibly can to wait for somebody to get open. That was maybe my one big critique of him, is that he tries to be a little bit too much of a hero. There's times where maybe he should throw it away. But anyway, just as a person, I think he's going to fit in well with the Broncos culture. I think he's one of those guys that still has a lot to prove, but I also think he's one of those guys that kind of uses that to fuel him. So for the Broncos, I'm excited to see it. I think, like I said, it gave them a lot of options. I think that's the big thing that you can say with this signing is the Broncos can go in a lot of different directions of how they want to build this team. And I'm with you. And this was kind of our next topic was what does this mean for the first round? Does signing Keenum mean that the Broncos won't take a quarterback at 5 or even try to trade up, trade down? What do you the questions are, what do you think they're going to do? And you'd kind of said, do you think that they're still going to take quarterback or that they should take quarterback, right?
I think that they would be wise to do it for a number of reasons. Number one, you are not committed to Keenum long-term at all. You know, you're not paying him 4 or 5 years, which means that you are stuck if things go wrong. And also, this is a class where there are some quality quarterbacks at the top. You know, that's not the case every year. If it was the year where, you know, you had Winston and Mariota or Goff and Wentz, Broncos are going to have to move up to 1 or 2 to go get that guy. Luckily, this year, there are 3 or 4 guys that many are considering as viable franchise quarterbacks. You know, there's guys like Lamar Jackson, which I've heard the Broncos are not as high on. You know, potentially that running quarterback, you know, there's some sustainability issues there. And then, you know, that second tier with Mason Rudolph and Kyle Aletta. But as much as we hate, or let's not hate him, but as much as we are lukewarm on Josh Allen, there are teams that like him. Some teams I've heard have him as the number 1 quarterback. Baker Mayfield, who's somebody the Broncos have been linked to heavily, and Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold. Broncos are picking 5. They have the ammo to go be aggressive, and it just fits up too perfectly. Especially, you know, today, Von Miller's contract, where they're spreading it out, you know, that signing bonus kicked in, and they're lowering the cap hit this year. It's raising the cap hit later. Setting it up perfectly for the Broncos to potentially have the roster structure and the payroll structure set up for a rookie quarterback. And after Keenum's 2 years, you know, that gives you a lot of options. And I think the Keenum 2 years thing is perfect too. It's not the 1 year Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater kind of thing where you're taking a quarterback and you're hoping they can come out and play year 1. Obviously, if you take a guy in the top 5, you hope they can play year 1, but you're not married to that. So that opens the door for Josh Allen, I think. That opens the door for Sam Darnold. Both guys, I think, would do well sitting at least the first half of the season. And then you got guys like Baker Mayfield, a little bit more of a wild card that I think could probably play day 1, but given his offense he played in and the difference between the Big 12 to the NFL and playing under center, I think he probably doesn't start day 1. And then Josh Rosen, who would come in and push and probably, I think, would beat Keenum day 1. So it gives the Broncos a lot of options at the top. And again, you don't pick 5 every year. You don't have this many quarterbacks at the top of this quality every year. Cash in. Go get that guy. And as I always said, he's not done swinging and missing. Well, he's got a chance at 4 different pitches here. He better swing and hit on one of them, it's my opinion. And if all 4 of them go before the Broncos pick, I'm going to be pretty devastated. And then, you know, you got a chance at Quentin Nelson, who I think they would take there. I don't think the Broncos are as interested in Saquon Barkley as the fans would hope, unfortunately. Gary Kubiak's fingerprints are all over that. But, yeah, in my opinion, with Keenum's deal, the way it's set up, and the crop this year, and the picking at the top, and the Broncos having the assets to go make moves if they have to, it's just set up too perfectly for the Broncos to target that guy and hopefully walk away with a franchise quarterback at the top of this draft.
Right. That was when I saw today the restructuring of Von Miller's contract. That was the first thing. I had somebody ask me about it. What do you think of this? And the first thing I said was, I think this means quarterback at 5 or 4 or 3, wherever they got to trade up to do that. But when you put those bigger hits for Von Miller later in the contract, and you're trying to get a few more guys to add to the roster, I think you're trying to get a fuller roster so that when you go to the draft, you have that flexibility to be able to go take a quarterback there at 5 and not feel like you've hurt the depth of your team.
And sorry to interrupt, but not only are you putting those bigger cap hits later, but you're increasing the guarantees. So it's not the worst to be stuck with Von Miller for sure, but I mean, you're stuck with him with this contract restructure.
Right. They have married Von Miller even more than they were before.
Yes.
If that's possible, which it is, obviously. So yeah, I do. I think this is more of you're going to take a quarterback because you're not going to be able to manipulate the cap as much moving forward. You're going to need a guy that's a lot more cap sensitive at a very expensive position. And of course, the most expensive position that we're seeing already, when $18 million is a discount for a quarterback these days, that's where you're going to look the most for a team. It's why you're seeing these teams that have those quarterbacks on rookie contracts, that they're able to add a lot of talent around them. They're able to build. You're seeing Titans continue to have tons of draft cap room. You're seeing the Jaguars, they've been able to add a lot of different pieces. You know, you're seeing that these teams realize they have a lot of flexibility. And
Eagles and Rams are the big 2 right now.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. That's why they're being able to add all these talented players and take some chances, take some risks that other teams just can't because their quarterback is locked into a huge contract. This is why you fight so hard to have your rookie quarterback work out. That's the finding the unicorn in the NFL, when you get your rookie quarterback to play well and you can then surround them with tons of talent. That's your huge Super Bowl window. That's why I told Raiders fans that as soon as they paid Derek Carr and then had to pay Khalil Mack, that their Super Bowl window didn't close, but it was much, much harder to build the team around those two. And we're seeing in the NFL, the more you can have a full roster, like the Eagles last year, they lose their star quarterback, and yet they still win the Super Bowl because they have great depth throughout their entire roster. So, again, this is why it'd be so important if they could get a Baker Mayfield or a Josh Rosen or a Sam Darnold, maybe a Josh Allen. Maybe he's going to turn into something. I still I can't see it. But anyway, one of those top four guys, if one of them hit, the Broncos are set for a very, very nice window. And so on that note, I guess, did you get to see any of Baker Mayfield's pro day yesterday?
Yeah, I did watch some of it. I got home really late last night, like I said, like 1 o'clock, and I was still wired on caffeine because I needed it to make the drive from the Quad Cities back to Iowa City. And I was like, you know what, I'll check in on Baker Mayfield's day. And he looked like he did pretty well. I guess it was a big trend on Twitter. I was trying to spend as little time on the phone yesterday as I could, but came out on that Karate Kid headband. A lot of fun. He's kind of an oddball, I think. I don't know. Maybe him and I just wouldn't match up. He's a little bit too intense for me. But yeah. I can see why players would gravitate towards him because he is 100%, energy all the time. Granted, if he flops in the NFL or he kind of struggles, I could see some teammates getting tired of that. But if he's successful, teammates are going to freaking love him.
Right.
So that's what I got from the interviews. From the throwing, I liked him ripping it down the field. He looked to have a pretty good arm. And just some stuff that I noticed on tape as well. On some of those 10, 15, 20-yard outs, he has a little bit of a hitch in his delivery. He pulls it back just a little farther. It's still quick, but he has a little bit of elongated release when he has to do that. And those outs, specifically outside or on the numbers or outside the numbers, the ball's a little bit wobbly. But again, this is where the film room and the whiteboard sessions and just the film itself is so much more important than seeing these guys throw against air. Right. That's not the case. Josh Allen against Baker Mayfield in the pro days and everything like that. I mean, there's no doubt Josh Allen's going to throw a tighter spiral and he's going to have more velocity on it. He's going to be bigger, everything like that. But that for me, especially after the Paxton Lynch debacle, I think we can call it that at this point. That's not the most important thing. You got to have a guy who shows accuracy. You got to have a guy who shows the ability to go through progressions quickly, and not only go through those progressions quickly, but make the correct decision. Obviously, very important. And that goes in hand with making pre and post snap reads. And then finally, you got to have a guy that understands the type of throws that are needed and throwing with anticipation. The NFL guys aren't going to be open. You got to throw guys open. The windows are tighter, and it's going to be tight coverage all the time. These guys are the best in the business. And so guys throwing against air, you kind of get some feeling of what kind of throws they can make at the NFL, but it's totally different than live bullets. So I'd much rather get them on the whiteboard and, rely on the tape. So that's what I would personally use. And I'm really upset that we can't bring these guys on the podcast and quiz them on the whiteboard and put them through the ringer ourselves. Cause they're talking about all these pro days and the combine and everything, but the biggest part yet, besides the tape analysis for these teams and analyzing these quarterbacks and finding their guy, is what they get from when they bring them into the facility. So when they bring Josh Rosen to the facility, when they bring Baker Mayfield into the facility, have them in for a few hours, not only film sessions, whiteboard, interviews, everything like that, but then throwing as well. I mean, that's where these guys are going to really separate themselves, and teams are going to not only find guys that they think fit their system, but also fit their coaches from like a personality standpoint and everything like that, which is very important. So I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. We're not going to be there in Dove Valley, unfortunately, fly on the wall, what I would give to be able to sit in there and listen to the interviews and see how those guys do. We have some sources and get to hear from it secondhand, but that's different than actually being there. So I guess it's a little bit of hearsay that would be thrown out in court, but in an NFL draft podcast, we can kind of go off that.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned from my failure on Paxton Lynch is just how important that whiteboard work is. How important it is of how committed they are going to be to learning the playbook, putting in the extra hours. Did you get to watch the I think was it Zach Strafe?
Yeah, for the Saints.
Yeah, did you see his exit interview?
I did, man. He loves that Drew Brees.
Oh my goodness. And just that's how you want your players to think of your quarterback. Not, hey, man, he's playing video games all the time. I wish he would come and work on some film room, and I wish he wasn't the last one in the building and first one to leave. And you just have to have a guy that absolutely loves football. And I think that's my biggest thing with Baker Mayfield that I love is you can just absolutely tell he loves football. He has that attitude of, I will do everything possible not to lose because I hate losing with a passion. And so, he puts in the extra time. I've heard stories of things that he's done to help make sure to that teammates get to practice on time, or he'll drive out of his way to go pick them up every single day. He'll be there to help them out. He'll be there in his playbook all the time. He'd rather sit at home reading his playbook than he would to go out and party. Now, I mean, that wasn't always the case, but he's learned that that's more of an important part of his game. So those are things that I really like to hear. But then also there's those times where he does something stupid and you're like, man, what are you doing? He'll get on Twitter and start a Twitter feud with somebody like he did with Mark Schlereth. There's times like that I'm going, man, this guy, he's got some maturity issues. So you're going to have to deal with that. I think of maybe a lesser Ben Roethlisberger of when he came into the league, because Big Ben was very immature, and he finally started getting it when he got married. That was when he started kind of calming down a little bit. So maybe Baker Mayfield just needs to go get married or something. So ladies listening, go talk to Baker Mayfield, see what you can do. Get this kid to calm down a bit. But no, that's just some things about him that you're gonna have some good and some bad as well. And that's kind of all the quarterbacks. You have some red flags when it comes to them. And Josh Rosen, maybe some of the biggest false red flags, would you say?
I would argue so. It really annoys me when I see people saying that he's an issue, and maybe it's because I kind of identify with Rosen. I wouldn't say I'm as smart as him, but definitely from where he's coming from, I feel like him and I would vibe and hit it off. He's kind of my type of personality. So that I mean, again, it's got to be your fit with your coaches and everything. But overall, I mean, what law did Josh Rosen ever break? Anything like that? He's definitely a guy that I don't think is the puppet. Like, that's why some teams really like Sam Darnold. Not that Sam Darnold's not authentic or anything, but he's very scripted all the time, politically correct, sticks to the script. Where Josh Rosen, you can tell that he's thinking. He's authentically him. Same with Baker Mayfield. And, that's not going to vibe with every single coach. It's not going to vibe with every single fan, because he's going to speak his mind. And being a, California liberal who's done some political actions and outspoken about the environment and everything like that, I mean, that's in the political culture we're in today in the United States. That is something that's going to rub some people the wrong way, no matter what. But I think you got to be able to separate that. And if you're counting out a guy because of that, or if you think you have any sort of bias against him because of that, you need to check yourself. I'm potentially, and even if you don't like John Elway for the same reason, that's you got to check that at the door. That's not what this is about.
Right.
So I think Josh Rosen, he brought in a hot tub in his freshman year. Whoop-de-doo. The injury issues are the big thing. Like, he's got to pass the medicals. But as far as personality, I think talking to his teammates, talking to a couple of coaches at the combine and everything like that, I think that he has grown, and he understands that he's got to be Josh Rosen, the quarterback, the leader. He can't act like Baker Mayfield, because that's phony.
Right.
Like, people will see through that. If anybody gets to know you or be around you long enough, and you're acting like somebody else, and then all of a sudden the chips are down and you crap the bed and you're totally somebody else, like, that's gonna be an issue. So he's got to be authentically him, and that's what he touched on a lot at the combine, and I'm buying it. Some people think Aaron Rodgers is a little bit aloof, a little bit different, but I think they're very, very similar personality wise. I've heard that from a couple people, and I couldn't agree more. They're not the typical rah-rah guy, but they're going to put in the work. They're very intelligent. They're going to play off, have fun with the media and challenge the coaches, which personally I love. That's what I would be looking for in my quarterback. He's the CEO type, like kind of like the Broncos had with Peyton Manning, who's, not always the rah-rah guy in the locker room, but he'll call you on it.
Right.
And he'll put in the work. So I'm still very much, as you can tell, anybody listening, I'm still very much a Rosen Brosen, but I just I don't know if he's going to be in the cards for the Broncos unless they are willing to trade up and potentially give up a 2019 first, and that's something that might be a little bit too expensive for the Broncos, especially with a team like the Bills who have a lot more ammo to move up. The Broncos have a lot of ammo, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they are as desperate to move up because they are at 5, and I don't think they have as much expendable picks as like a team like the Bills do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's been a storyline written about Rosen from day one, and it's by a lot of people that probably don't even know the kid one bit. They see a little bit of his personality in the media, and I'm with you. There's a lot of quarterbacks that honestly have a very similar personality. Peyton Manning was a little bit more goofy, but he was still that very intellectual guy, very much a challenging guy. There's a lot of coaches that have talked about how Manning was the one guy asking them the most questions. It was almost like quizzing them on what they are looking at, why they are calling certain plays in this certain situation. And I think that's good. I think our coaches need that.
It depends on the coach. It depends on the coach, though.
That is true. But I think, and I hope you get a coach that can handle that, because yes, some of them might find that a little bit of an ego thing. That why is my quarterback the one that's quizzing me instead of me quizzing him kind of thing. But I would hope that you'd have a coach that would be up to the challenge and would want some of that. But yeah, I like Josh Rosen. I've grown to like him a lot more than I did before. I used to be in that, oh man, this guy's attitude, I don't know if it can be handled in the NFL. I don't know how he's going to fit in the locker room. But the more I've thought about it, like you said, with the hot tub when he was 18, I built a slip and slide in the dorms when I was 18.
Hey.
Got in a lot of trouble, had to pay a huge fine. But, you're 18. You're going to do something stupid. I don't know any 18-year-old male that hasn't done something really, really stupid. And a hot tub in the dorm, I don't think that's a big deal at all. Anybody that's making it a big deal, come on. Either, I don't know. Yeah, there's just no reason to think that way because that just happens.
You're looking for a reason to dislike him at that point.
Right.
Just, what can I find? Oh, there it is. Screw that guy.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. If the Broncos can land either of those two guys, I would be happy with Darnold too, especially now that we have Keenum in the works. I've soured on Darnold a little bit just because listening to him in interviews, like you said, you can tell his immaturity. You can tell that he's just not there like the other guys. He's not ready to step on the field day one. I think it would be a huge mistake for a team to expect him week one to be the starter. I think you're going to burn him out. I think you're going to completely destroy his career if you start him week one. There's been other quarterbacks that I thought the same thing, that there's no way that they're ready. Obviously Lynch, he was one that was not ready. And I think of others that have shown they were absolutely ready day one. Andrew Luck, he was ready day one. Russell Wilson was another guy that just maturity-wise, they were up there in maturity. And Rosen and Mayfield, Rosen especially, you can tell his maturity. Mayfield, there is some questions I still have. I thought he did better at his pro day of answering questions, of not seeming quite as defensive as he was at the combine. So maybe it was just getting around people that he's comfortable with, getting in an environment that he's comfortable with, and just kind of maybe just getting a breath of fresh air or breathing a sigh of relief or whatever you want to call it after the combine, because I can't imagine the stress those players go under. You've got interviews with almost every single team. You're up at the crack of dawn. You're not going to bed until late at night. And then you're expected to go out there and perform at the highest level possible. And every little thing that you do wrong is critiqued. I don't know, just that absolute pressure that they're under and just everything. I can't see that being a great week for many people out there. But anyway, for them to then be able to come to their pro day, I think that's a good spot to be at. I did want to ask you one question about just the Oklahoma pro day. What do you think about Orlando Brown and his improving numbers? Does that change anything for you?
The thing for me about Orlando Brown's numbers is not the numbers themselves, like in a vacuum. It's that it shows to me it raises work ethic concerns. It's not like he didn't know that this was coming up and he showed up overweight and struggled in all the field drills and the bench press. He did improve it a little bit, but still, those things, when that combine's coming up and you fall flat like that, I mean, that's got to be an issue. So I would love to have him in an interview, just be point blank. What the heck went wrong? See how he handles it, because he obviously knows that it was not good. There's no way he doesn't know. We'll see how in reality he is, because if he doesn't know it wasn't good, then we got a whole another set of issues. But I mean, for me, especially in Denver, where you got altitude is a big issue, and he's been playing left tackle, there's going to be a transition for him to get to right tackle. There is. It's not that easy. It's not everybody can do it. And then you have him being overweight. I mean, we saw today, Zach Banner, 4th round pick by the Colts last year, didn't make it to their team, was on the Browns last year and was waived today. Probably done in the NFL. Somebody might take a flyer on him in training camp and whatnot, but odds are that the guys with that size, I don't know if he's going to succeed. So it's unfortunate, because the NFL could really use some more tackles, and anybody who played tackle, if they could stick there, that would be good for the league and good for them. But I personally don't want to be the guy who would take a flyer on him.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up. He's I just can't see the fit with the Broncos right now.
Yeah.
And it's just that's tough to see, because I was starting to warm up to him before the combine. I was starting to think, especially just the tackle class wasn't looking that good, of, hey, maybe this guy, maybe you trade up into the late 1st round pick and try to get this guy locked in, and then you have your cornerstone tackles for the next 4 or 5 years. But then he goes and does that, and you're just like, man, this does not, especially in Denver, this especially does not work. And I know Baker Mayfield has tried to talk him up, which, hey, you're going to do that for your teammate, saying that he gave up 0 sacks this last year, and that matters more. And tape does matter more. But like you said, when you start seeing those other things, that's why the combine matters. I saw somebody post something about Zach Banner and saying that he finished in the 3rd percentile or something like that for all tackles in showing up of just his spider graph.
Yeah,
and
it's not good.
It was not good. And they said this is why the combine matters. It's not always so much to show what a player is. It's more maybe to show what a player isn't. And right now, Orlando Brown isn't a tackle that's in shape, and isn't a tackle that understands the seriousness of the situation that he's in. It's kind of like, I think I said this last time, of Terrence Knighton. He never understood the importance of him staying in shape, of how much that would mean to his contract. When you show up for an interview and they weigh you in for your physical, and you show up at 380 to 390 pounds, they're sitting there going, we can't get you on the field. We're going to have to spend months just getting you into shape. And so all of a sudden, nobody wants anything to do with him. So it's the same with Orlando Brown right now, of, man, you're not showing the dedication that's needed to be a good tackle in this league. You look at the guys that have absolutely sacrificed. Like I said earlier with Drew Brees, he sacrificed time with family. He sacrificed time having fun. His off seasons were spent a lot of times in the film room, making sure that he's still in shape, all those kind of things. Like these players, they go the extra mile. Tom Brady, as much as I hate him, I respect the heck out of the guy, because I know he puts in more work than almost anybody in the league. His diet is just ridiculous. I saw him drink a beer the other day, and I'm kind of wondering, is that like your first beer that you've had in years? Because he doesn't let anything bad into his body. He takes very much care of it, because he understands how important it is for him to be able to play now that he's 40, 41 years old. And so again, Orlando Brown, I don't even know how far this kind of thing drops him. Is this a day 3 kind of guy now?
He really might be. He really might be, but somebody will probably take a chance on him day 2, just because he has shown on tape, and there's just such a need for an offensive tackle in this class, especially. We thought last year was bad. Last year had worse depth, but I think the top of the class was a little better. This year, it has more depth, but I mean, outside of Mike McGlinchey, I don't see anybody that I'm super comfortable with at tackle. So we'll see. But we got to move on here from quarterbacks soon, but we probably should talk about the teams in front of the Broncos. Albright's reporting it. Our own Eric Trickle's reporting it. It sounds like the Browns are focusing in on Darnold at 1. So we're not really talking too much about him on here, and it's probably because we don't think he's going to be there. And with Keenum there, it's too bad. We'd like the option of Darnold because I think he does have a pretty big upside. He has the arm. He can throw on the move. He's got good pocket movement. He does have to clean up his feet. The winding motion is something that I think he's always going to have, but he still gets the ball out there quickly. Mayfield has a little bit of a windup too when he tries to throw it deep. So it's not the worst, but it sounds like the Browns are closing in on him as their number 1 guy. And I think it has as much to do with a personality fit with the coaching staff and the team as it does, Darnold being quarterback 1 in this class. After that, though, it's a question mark. Are the Giants going to stay at number 2? Are they going to trade down? That's a huge question mark as well. There's reports they love Saquon Barkley. There's reports that they love Quentin Nelson. They have a relationship. Their GM has a relationship with the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So there's some interest there. Something could happen. And then you have the Colts at 3 who have to be begging for a team to trade up. I feel like every single Colts tweet is about them trading down with the Bills to get those 2 first-round picks. Like, their free agency has been bad. They really just want to get a great trade, and they got to be begging for somebody to trade up. And then before, it sounded like the Browns were looking to stick at 4, but after signing Carlos Hyde, stick at 4 and pick Saquon Barkley. But after signing Carlos Hyde, I think that number 4 pick is open for business. So a lot of the quarterbacks that we've seen over the past few years, it's not the number 1 and the number 2 team in the draft that ended up picking there. Somebody trades up and goes and gets the quality quarterbacks, the guys that are the franchise guys. Obviously there's a chance to bust, but the consensus franchise guys. And it's a possibility that the Broncos picking at 5, I'm not saying it's likely. I mean, would be insane, but it's a possibility. The Broncos picking at 5 could miss out on Darnold, Rosen, Mayfield, and Allen. Now, I'm not sure Elway would let that happen if he sees a guy that he wants or somebody's falling. I see him being very aggressive and trying to move up, but it's a possibility. So got to prepare for that. And, as we've seen, if there's quarterbacks that teams think can be guys, odds are they're going early because there is nothing compared to the quarterback position in any sport. You got to have that guy. So going to be interesting to follow, and I'm sitting on pins and needles because I'm definitely a quarterback in the first round guy because you're drafting this high. Hopefully we're not drafting here again, and I think this is probably as good of a top of the quarterback class as we've seen in a bit. So go get the guy, and you can, you don't have to play him right away. You got Keenum, who's solid. That's fine, but you got to get that quarterback, I think. And if you don't, I'm personally going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Keenum's in for 2 years.
If that.
You're definitely not married to this guy one bit. And I think the way the contract is designed, I just think quarterback has to be a huge thought here. And the Broncos have shown they sent 7 people to Mayfield's pro day yesterday. I'm pretty sure they sent probably the same 7 to Rosen's today. They're showing quarterback is still very much a priority. They're not trying to cover it up. They're just showing the world that, hey, we know quarterback is you got to get that right. Above anything else in football, you have to get the quarterback right. So to me, if you got to trade up, you got to trade up. Broncos have the draft capital to do that. Of all the years for us to be able to sacrifice some draft picks to move up, this is the year. Broncos have, I think it's the 3rd best draft capital of any team out there. The Bills and the Browns are the only teams that have more. So again, Broncos have the ability to do it. Go out there, get aggressive, get your guy, and you're going to be happy about it. I don't care if you have to even give up that first-round pick next year. I know that's tough to say, but man, if you get your quarterback, it doesn't matter what it costs you. Look at the Eagles. I bet they don't care that they had to give up that first-round pick to go get their guy. The Rams, again, another team. That hasn't hurt them at all. Both of them were playoff teams. So you get the quarterback right, you got a pretty good team moving forward. And I don't know. So it's going to be an interesting draft for sure, especially with this many quarterbacks at the top. There's going to be fireworks in those top 5 picks.
Do you think that 4 quarterbacks will go in the top 6 picks?
I would almost guarantee it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I agree, Heath, but that's insane.
It's hard not to see. I mean, because the Bills, there's no way that they're not trading up. They have Teddy Bridgewater. Is that it?
No, the Teddy Bridgewater went to the Jets.
The Jets, sorry,
A.J.
yes.
McCarron.
Right, that's right, A.J. McCarron. So obviously every NFL team showed McCarron is not a guy they view as a long-term starter. Otherwise, he would have been locked up for that $20 million a year kind of deal. I think he might have been a little shocked by how bad his market was. I mean, just people were willing to go after McCown before they were him kind of thing. So Bills, they have to obviously get up there into the top 5. You got the Browns who obviously need one. Giants could take one, but if another team's trading up with them, it's because they want that quarterback. I just see 2 or 3 trades into that top 6 picks. And if not, you have the Broncos, you have the Jets, who absolutely both still looking quarterback. I just can't see how you're not going to have 4 quarterbacks in those top 6 picks.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be crazy, and Bronco fans are going to be ticked off probably if they skip on a guy like Saquon Barkley or even some of the Quentin Nelson people. But you got to get that quarterback, and it's a deep interior offensive line class. So hopefully somebody that the Broncos like falls to 5, and maybe they can trade up back in the first round and get a guy like Will Hernandez. That would be awesome. Or maybe because of Adam Gotsis, maybe a guy like Taven Bryan. So yeah, I mean,
hint.
Yeah, it's possible. But anyway, before I hint at the next part, we got to talk about Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. I spent the better part of last week on a beach in a sweatshirt and a towel, a little bit cold, and I used Audible there and listened to a few books. I've been listening to some of the Dan Brown stuff, which was good. I've been doing, I guess, listening, not reading, listening to Inferno, which is a good one, and definitely good to get a little break from football on the beach. I still love football, and you can bet your horses I was tuned in for free agency and everything like that, but good to just kind of unplug and, well, I guess you can't really say unplug because I was listening to Audible on my phone, but kind of unplug from football for a bit and just relax. And Audible did that for me, and I know like everybody else has got some spring breaks coming up, and give Audible a try. If you got a road trip coming up or a flight or you've got a vacation on the beach or even in the mountains and you're looking just to relax, go to Audible and make sure you type in /huddleup for audibletrial.com to support us. But yeah, like we dropped before, a little bit of hint, the Broncos have made some other moves so far in free agency, such as signing veteran Wanderman, I guess we can say, and Tremaine Brock, going to compete at cornerback 3. Sounds like a 1-year, $4 million deal, but is heavily incentivized. So honestly, if he does not cut it at camp, let's say a guy like Brendan Langley looks great and Tremaine Brock doesn't look great, Broncos could cut Tremaine Brock, and I'm guessing they're going to be on the hook for very little cash. So seems like a good deal, especially if we're moving on a guy like Aqib Talib, who, good luck to Los Angeles, Aqib Talib. Glad you're not in New England. Glad you're not in the Raiders. We'll say that. But Tremaine Brock, low risk, decent reward. It's solidifying the secondary and making it not as much of a need.
Right. He's had good seasons. I know maybe this is a guy that Bronco fans haven't heard a whole lot about because he spent his entire career in the NFC. And for a lot of people, we don't pay attention to the NFC because we only play 4 teams a year from that division unless we get to the Super Bowl. And so, or that conference, I guess I should say, not division. But Jermaine Brock for the 49ers, even when they were a bad team, he was still a guy that was performing pretty well to the point where they ended up giving him a pretty big contract there for a little bit. And it was kind of weird. When he was on like these short-term deals, he was showing up big time for him. But as soon as he got the long-term deal, all of a sudden he just kind of fell off the edge of the world. And for all of you flat earthers out there,
stop it.
Sorry. But anyway, he's a guy that has some upside. I've watched a little bit of him over these last couple days here, and he has an interesting game. He's a guy that takes a lot of risk. He kind of reminds me of a poor man's Marcus Peters. He will bait quarterbacks into bad throws. He will be aggressive with his wide receiver. He likes to kind of stay in their back pocket and then use his athleticism to try to outjump them, win those 50-50 balls. He is a great tackler, very, very aggressive tackler. And so I think he's one of those guys that could fit in well with the Broncos system. But like I said, he's a guy that takes a lot of chances. His last full season starting with the 49ers, he ended up giving up 6 touchdowns. Now, he only allowed 50% completions, and I think he only gave up 30 passes that year, but 6 of them go for touchdowns. So every 5 passes that are completed against him, one's a touchdown. And so that's kind of the good and bad, the high risk, high reward with him, but could be a guy that also is going to have you pulling out your hair too. I don't know. Have you watched much of Tremaine Brock?
I remember watching some of him while he was in San Francisco, and he was solid, but nothing fantastic. So, I mean, but granted, I have very high expectations of cornerback play, given what we've had in Denver the past few years, and honestly, what the Iowa Hawkeyes have been producing as well. So we'll see what happens, but again, it's a 1-year incentivized deal, and he's not even a guarantee to make the team. It's just the Broncos covering their bases and bringing in a vet who's shown well and can compete for that cornerback 3 spot. And I'm honestly even more excited about the other guy they're bringing in. He has to pass a physical to be signed, but Delvin Breaux, I believe his name is, Breaux. I'm just going to go with that Cajun pronunciation there. Delvin Breaux from the Saints. He was fantastic for them a couple years ago, but he's dealt with a number of injuries. But I think he still has pretty good upside, and Broncos have some of the best secondary coaches in the entire NFL. I mean, from Vance Joseph to Joe Woods on down. They're not even the defensive back coaches. So you get a high upside young guy that potentially you can get him healthy and right. I mean, that could be a steal. So I'm really excited about him. I'm just eager to see if he'll pass that physical, because that's the big thing for him.
Right. Isn't he the one that the Saints, I think, misdiagnosed his injury?
Yes.
And so they sent him back out there, and then the injury got severe, and all of a sudden he needed surgery when he should have had surgery at the beginning, and it wouldn't have been as bad. But something happened there with their training staff. I remember that.
I believe his broken fibula was not all the way healed, and he went out there and it got worse. Gotcha.
Okay. I thought that's who it was. And you're right. He was showing a lot of upside before that injury. So he's coming to a great training staff here in Denver. That's why a lot of players have even said in the past, like I remember with Watson last year, talking about the training staff being a big selling point with the Broncos. So if he can stay healthy, more power to him. I'm excited to see what he can do here for the Broncos. And it seems like this physical's been taken forever. I don't know. We've known about him for like the last about day and a half now, and still nothing's happened. So I don't know what's going on there. But that kind of brings us to our next signing. And this is just, I guess, just bringing back the guy, and Todd Davis, to help with the inside linebacker depth, because we lost Nelson to the Eagles, and pretty much the Broncos just didn't have anything else other than Brandon Marshall. So bringing back Todd Davis, I think this is kind of a no-brainer kind of signing. Do you agree with that?
I think it was one where a lot of people are pretty down on it, but I like Todd Davis for what he is. You know, he's not a guy who's going to be a pursuit linebacker or a coverage linebacker, but in the 3-4, you're going to have those guys exposed a little bit more, and he's great at coming down and taking on blockers and getting off blocks and filling gaps and being an impact player in the run game. And I think every single year he's improved. He's still young. He's been relatively healthy. And you're bringing him in, 3-year, $15 million. And by the looks of the contract, it would be relatively easy to get out of after the first year if he struggles this year or something happens, let alone even easier after 2 years. So I think it's a good deal, especially given the market. I mean, Demario Davis got paid $8 million from the Saints. Ridiculous. That's just silly. I mean, Anthony Hitchens got paid huge money from the Chiefs. Another Hawkeye. I'm proud of him, but yeah.
He got $9 million a year.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a stat earlier today. They were showing the difference between when Sean Lee went out with injury and how much the Cowboys dropped off. I think they went from giving up only 3.5 yards a carry on rundowns to 4.2 yards per carry. And they showed when Hitchens wasn't in the game, there was no difference for the Cowboys. the defense pretty much played at the same level. So it's just, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but to get $9 million a year, that is overpaying big time. And so that's why a lot of these deals, when you're looking at, I know some people have been down on the signing of Keenum at $18 million a year. Like, oh my goodness, how can you pay him that much? Well, Sam Bradford's getting $20 million. I'd rather have Keenum than Bradford, and especially when he's $2 million cheaper. And Todd Davis, I don't think there's that big of a difference between him and Demario Davis that you would double the money to get a Demario Davis. So it's not like Todd Davis is coming in and is going to be this amazing talent for the Broncos. As we've seen, he's an above average, more like you said it, he knows his role and he does his role well. When you ask him to play outside of his role, he's not that great. And teams have worked to expose that in the past, as we've seen them try to go in their big packages to keep him on the field and then run pass plays out of that down. But Todd Davis, for what he is, he's a very good help. And it makes the Broncos where they don't absolutely have to go inside linebacker right off the bat in the draft. I think that's the big thing is you're using free agency to help you not have to get stuck taking a certain player, not having to go a certain position and reach for a player that you otherwise wouldn't have drafted. And so Todd Davis, he's proven to be a solid starter in the NFL. And you want to upgrade him. If you find a guy that can upgrade on him, that's great. If not, you at least still have a solid starter at that position. So decent signing. It doesn't really move the needle for me that much either way. But I guess the big thing for me is just what it does for the draft.
Yeah, and I'm bringing it back to the draft. I really like what it does for the draft class for the Broncos because I really think this is a really good off-ball linebacker class. You know, you got guys at the top like Roquan Smith and Tremaine Edmonds and Rashaan Evans and even, Leighton Vander Esch, who talk they're going to go top 40. I don't think the Broncos are going to go that way now. But this is a deep class as well. There are names like Jack Keechie, who has been coming off an ACL, but looked like a top 40 pick before the season, before he got injured from Wisconsin. So potentially a bargain guy there. A guy like Thomas from Florida State, who's tested very well and has pretty good production at Florida State. I think there's some off-field concerns there, but still, if they're going to vet those guys and if they bring in somebody like that, be very interesting. Oren Burks, who's a guy who tested extremely well at the combine, made a little bit of name for himself. I like Darius Leonard from South Carolina State. And one guy that I'm very high on that I think the Broncos are interested in as well is Fred Warner from BYU. So I didn't even talk about Josie Jewell, who I think is more of a day three backup type, but the Broncos lost Corey Nelson. They're going to be looking for that third, fourth linebacker type. And this is the draft class to do it. The Broncos having a bunch of third round picks, fourth round picks, and fifth round picks really seems like the sweet spot. And I would be ecstatic to bring a linebacker in there. Just let the board fall, and the guy you like falls in the range you like, snap him up.
Right. Well, and they also still have the option of Craven from Washington.
He's more of a safety, though. They need more of a linebacker type.
I understand, but he is that safety linebacker hybrid. So, I mean, if they go out there and trade for a guy like that, I mean, that's other options. That gives you more versatility on your defense. And like you said, this is a deep draft for the off-ball linebacker, which is very nice for the Broncos. And I'm with you. Middle rounds, third, fourth, fifth round, that's where you kind of find that sweet spot for one of those guys. And there's a lot of them that I really like. A lot of guys that I could get behind for the Broncos drafting. So, yeah, it's going to be a great group. I think this is going to be a time where we can really upgrade that position, especially the depth for the Broncos, and really move forward with this defense in the middle there. But kind of brings us then also the other big move that has happened for the Broncos is Trevor Simeon is gonzo. And I have in the notes here that maybe we should have the music Hallelujah playing in the background. The Hallelujah.
Yeah.
That might be a little insensitive because he is a good guy, but it was such time to move on from him. There's no way that you could keep him in that quarterback room with the Broncos, and especially now Keenum, probably a rookie coming in. You still have Kelly, you still have Lynch. That's just too many guys in that room. And so to get anything for Simeon, a 7th round pick, last, one of those comp picks that the Broncos got, to get anything for him, I'll take it. And I wish him well in Minnesota, I guess, or he can battle it out with Kyle Sloter for the backup position. Seems crazy that he's going to be battling him once again, I guess, if you could call that a battle with Sloter. But yeah, I guess any thoughts on this move?
I think Simeon did have value still, and Denver in a vacuum could have kept him, probably even gotten maybe a little better value for him. But the biggest thing is you're having a culture change in the Broncos locker room, a leadership shift, and keeping a guy like Simeon was just a non-starter. You can't do that when you're bringing in all these new people. And this former quarterback who the coaches had to say, hey, there's your leader, point to him, follow him, everything like that. And then you got somebody else coming in. So you got to get him out of there in that respect. And I'm happy to get some value for him instead of releasing him. Nothing but the best for Trevor Simeon. He seems like a decent guy, definitely an intelligent guy, and hope he has a long NFL career, get to that point where he's a vested veteran, and best of luck to him, but glad that era is over. I had enough Trevor Simeon for the Broncos for my taste, and I definitely am going to suffer from some PTSD, post-Trevor Simeon disorder for at least a little bit.
Yeah, there's still a lot of – it shocks me how many in Broncos country still believe that Trevor Simeon, if you got him an offensive line, would have become a very good starter in this league. I don't know. He would have been better, as any quarterback with a good offensive line would be better, but he's a quality backup. He's that kind of guy you like if you have to have a couple spot starts here and there. He's that nice security blanket, but full-time starter, your long-term solution, he just wasn't going to be that guy. And like you said, when you're shifting who your leader is, when it's going to be Keenum or it's going to be a rookie or a little bit of both, having Simeon there, that just doesn't go over well. And you get a few too many Chiefs in the locker room, it can end poorly. So I think this was the right time, right move, and got at least a little bit of value from what sounds like 5th or 6th round pick next year, which again, that's another part of this is Broncos traded a pick this year, and Broncos just have too many picks this year. I know a lot of people are, and I'm excited about how many picks the Broncos have, but to find room for 11 or 12 people, it just becomes very, very difficult. You're probably going to have to cut a couple guys, try to sneak them onto the practice squad. And so trying to get more value for next year, hey, if the Broncos can do that, that's great. If they can do that with a trade back at some other point in the draft too, that's great. So all around, appreciate your time, Simeon, but time to move forward. And the last thing I really want to talk about here is a little bit of just some situations that have popped up with the Broncos. 2 big situations. One is today they freed up Vaughn's cap hit with moving some of his base salary to a signing bonus. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, of that kind of gives you some room to be able to add to other positions. And so then you can feel a lot more comfortable when you get to the draft of taking a quarterback and not feeling like the depth of your team is hurt. But are you hearing anything about maybe ways that they plan on using that money, maybe some guys that they're targeting, especially for the offensive line, because that's still a place that has 2 really big holes in that right tackle, left guard, or right guard, depending on what they do with Leary. But are you hearing anything or any kind of intuition of what the Broncos are going to do here over the next few days, maybe in the draft or in free agency?
I would be surprised if they did not target an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman. Adam Gott's situation, not going to really comment on that too much other than the facts. He was arrested with a rape charge that occurred in 2013. All I'm going to say is that I hope justice prevails, but as far as a roster building perspective, that means the Broncos might have to look at defensive line earlier than they thought. So maybe a guy like Sue, maybe bringing back a guy like Crick or Billy Wynn. There's options there that they're going to have to look at. Maybe going earlier in the draft than they had originally thought. Taven Bryan has been working with Landau, who's the new Broncos strength and conditioning guy. So they have a little insight on him, and he's perfect for their system. Honestly, perfect for what they want in their 5 technique, 3 technique type. So we'll see there, but there's definitely some defensive line depth that needed to be added even before the Gotsis stuff happened. So now there's potential that he could be done. Who knows? So I would love them to be aggressive there because, anybody who's listening to this podcast knows I'm as big of a proponent for the defensive line as anybody out there. And then the offensive line. I swear to God, I looked at the names of the offensive line, people that are left, and when I clicked on the names, tumbleweed went across my screen. Like, it is barren wasteland out there. There are some names out there. Justin Puig, I don't think he has been signed yet, former first-round pick. He's visiting with the Cardinals. It sounds like he's expected to sign there, so that's too bad. I wouldn't have minded bringing him in. That he offers you the positional flexibility where he can be a guard or a tackle, and that really helps going into the draft. I think he can play both at least an average level. And then you have a guy like Cameron Fleming who's out there, and maybe Marshall Newhouse, who I think the Broncos might have some interest in, especially with Bill Musgrave having formerly coached him at Oakland. Nothing amazing though. There's not going to be a home run pick on the offensive line. Any Bronco fans that expecting that to happen is just going to end up massively disappointed. The only way that happens is if the Broncos land a great interior offensive lineman in the second round or trade up. Maybe, Quentin Nelson, if something happens, I'm not going to rule out Quentin Nelson at 5 or something like that. But right now it seems like quarterback's probably the most likely there. And then you have a chance for interior offensive linemen later on. That's your home run pick on the offensive line. Maybe they get lucky and hit on a tackle in the draft, but it's kind of, you got to get more lucky than good in terms of finding that right tackle in that regard. But I don't think you're really going to find that guy in free agency. So I guess finding just some guys that can compete and hopefully play at least at a average level. Maybe it ends up being Cyrus Kouandjio. Maybe Menelik Watson takes a step forward. I don't know. But when you have guys like Chris Hubbard getting paid stupid money for being a spot start tackle in the league, and then Nate Soldier, who's honestly a average to below average left tackle in the NFL, getting paid the most money ever per season for an offensive tackle, that just speaks volumes to the state of demand for tackles and offensive linemen in the league, and it's not going to get better. So I honestly wouldn't mind a wide net approach. Take some guys more than once, stack the position, get depth, and hope you hit on a couple.
Right. Yeah, the only guy that I really see still in free agency, you already kind of hinted at him, Cameron Fleming. He played pretty well for the Patriots, but then again, they probably have the best offensive line coach in football. And we saw with the Patriots when he retired for a year, their offensive line just absolutely collapsed. So is that more Fleming showing his potential, or is that more the offensive line coach just turning a turd into a gold nugget? That just doesn't happen very often in the NFL. I don't know. So, and he's probably going to demand a pretty big contract, and I would guess that the Patriots are getting a little bit antsy since they've lost out on a few guys. I know they were in on Nate Soldier, and then he goes and signs his big contracts. They lose their left tackle, and their right tackle's coming off injury. So it just, I don't know. I could see him going back to the Patriots. Justin Pugh, what's his position? He's got position versatility, but is he actually a huge upgrade at either position? Kind of still remains to be seen because he was on a pretty bad offensive line there in New York. And so, yeah, it's getting to be slim pickings. And I kind of am starting to think that more the opening up the cap space is maybe for the defensive line than the offensive line. I think that's where the actual still talent is at. When you look at guys like Sue, you look at Richardson, there's just a few more guys out there that actually make sense. But that's just me. If you're freeing up that much money, that you want to get a quality guy, and I'm just not seeing it for the offensive line.
Yeah, I I don't know. It's just there's nothing really out there, and there's a reason that these guys that are viable players are getting paid record-breaking money. They're just, if teams have those guys, they're not letting them walk. And if they are walking, they're going to reset the market, every time. That's how it is. So speaking of that cap space, the Broncos may be smart, to not only look outside the organization to add talent, but look in the organization and extend guys. You have Bradley Roby, who's going to be a free agent soon. Hop on that, see what he thinks his market is, and potentially get him, that 3-4 year deal, keep him on for his prime, keep him until he's 28, 29. Same with Matt Paradis. The Broncos, we've talked on here, maybe Connor McGovern's going to be that center, but if nobody's willing to bite on that second round tender, maybe you can get him to sign for a deal that's below his market value. Given what players are getting on the market, even an interior offensive lineman, signing Paradis for $6 million a year, $7 million a year, something like that, that could end up being a bargain. And I know he's probably better overall at a zone scheme, but teams mix and match these days. So I wouldn't be upset at all. You got to bring in a few more guys here and there. Those late value guys, like bringing in Billy Wynn, Jared Crick, maybe a Marshall Newhouse that can compete and everything like that. It's not going to be anybody that moves the needle for the fans and potentially doesn't really do very much but fill the holes for the team. But long term, maybe getting some of those guys on better deals and paying the guys that have been in the locker room that deserve the extensions. That can be big for a locker room as well. So that's something that I think the team will look at and something to watch. Yeah,
I'm hoping they get really aggressive with Roby because, like you said, you start seeing some of these contracts that are being thrown around. What did Sherman get? $13 million a year coming off an Achilles injury, and he's up there a little bit in age. He's 30, 31. So you're looking at some of that, and you're going, man, this guy, if we can get him here for $12 million a year for the next 3-4 years, that could be a huge discount in the long term of things.
I was talking with Eric yesterday. He was saying about 8 to 10.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, even that, I mean, like I said, I view 12 million as a discount for a guy of his possible caliber. So it's just a market out there that's just going crazy. It's reaching a point where I think there's going to be that bubble that pops. I was reading on this earlier about the running back position. About 4 or 5 years ago, it just reached a bubble where teams are going, we're done. We're not paying these guys this money. And boom, all of a sudden, running backs trying to get paid, unless your name's McKinnon, you're not getting paid. I still can't believe he got as much as he did from the 49ers.
That was such a stupid deal.
Yeah. The 49ers have done a couple head-scratching moves and a couple really good moves. I've kind of gone back and forth on their offseason, but that's for another time. But anyway, that kind of happened, and they were saying that with the cornerback market, it's kind of reaching that point where you're getting these guys, even average players, who are getting paid way more than you would think they would. And quarterbacks, I think they got to be reaching a bubble. You'd think so, but with teams and how much they're valuing quarterbacks right now, maybe that's not the case. But still, I mean, it's just one of those things where it just prices keep going up and up. And if you can get a guy that's willing to take a little bit below market deal, you jump on that. And even if it's cost us a little bit of cap room this year, you got the cap room to do it. And especially if we go get that rookie quarterback, then it makes those kind of deals all the more pretty, gives them all the more ability to go add different talent. And so Broncos have some options. That's the nice thing right now. They can go in a lot of different directions to add a lot of different talent. And that's not including the draft. So I don't know. This is where I always like to tell people, have patience with free agency. I know a lot of the bigger names have already been signed, but a lot of times it is the guys who get signed a week later after free agency that end up being the bigger impact, or the guys that actually play above their contract. You think of a Darian Stewart. You think of a Emmanuel Sanders. There's those kind of guys that D'Amato Pecco, he was another one. They weren't these big day one signings that got paid well beyond their ability. and they paid off big time. And you're seeing these guys who actually do get paid in this first few days of free agency. Those are the guys that get cut. You see with Sue from the Dolphins, signed that huge 6-year, $114 million contract and only made it, 2 seasons, 3 seasons with him?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're willing to take that $22 million dead money hit because he's not living up to the contract. So sometimes when you go out and get those big name guys, they don't always work out. We don't always have a 2014 season where you have Ware, Talib, and Ward all work out great. That's not usually how free agency works. Usually the winners of free agency are the teams that don't make the playoffs. So this is show some patience. Let's see how this all plays out. Let's see the full picture that Elway puts in place and then be the judge of how this entire offseason goes, because there's just so much still to go. And it's hard to be patient when you're seeing all these other guys getting signed and you're going, what are the Broncos doing? All they've done is sign a cornerback that could be cut before the season even starts and bring back Todd Davis. Whoop-de-doo. Like that's nothing. But again, 2 days in, that's all we're at right now. So just have to wait and see how things all play out. And maybe they go get a big guy like Sue or Richardson, or maybe they extend some guys to make sure that their cap is under control for the next few years. There's just so many ways that this team can go and see this team improve.
Yeah, I agree. And, bringing in Keenum and the way this is a transition. We're not reloading. Elway would not say that. Or we're not rebuilding. Elway would never say that. But this might be a little bit of a reload. And Super Bowl expectations this year, we'll just play it by ear. But right now we got to get better than 5-11. And that starts with the offensive line, that starts with the quarterback, and that starts with guys taking to the coaching. And Vance Joseph's going to have to step up. All those guys, they know that they are on thin ice. The hot seat is very hot. So we'll see what happens, but this is probably as big of a draft as Elway's had since his very first one. And if he fails on this one, then long-term implications, I'm not sure. I'm not going to be calling for Elway's head, but there's definitely going to be some. He doesn't do well with failing, so maybe he would back out himself. Who knows? But things are changing, and we just going to have to buckle along for the ride and analyze it the best we can and give you our opinions and our thoughts, and hopefully everything goes well because we are all still fans. We're pulling for this team. But yeah, that will wrap up this week's episode of the Huddle Up 2018 NFL Draft Podcast. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you head on over to Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of Scout.com and CBS Sports Digital, to find ours and our co-writers' written content, not just pertaining to the draft, but all things that relate to your Denver Broncos. If you have any questions that relate to the draft or anything like that, please make sure you reach out to us on Twitter, as we're very active on there and love to talk draft and team building with anybody. You disagree with our takes, or you're a big Josh Allen fan, or you think Baker Mayfield's the best, or you just hate Josh Rosen. You think my Josh Rosen take is pure garbage. I'm a pretty friendly guy. I don't think I'm going to bite your head off if you reach out to me and disagree with me on Twitter. Carl's even nicer than I am. So make sure you reach out to us. We love talking the draft with you guys. You can follow the Huddle Up Podcast by subscribing to us on iTunes and for Android users, Stitcher, as well as check us out on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us and reach out to us, as we love interacting with you guys. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up another episode of the Huddle Up Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos and go draft.
Mile High Huddle.